Hey, everyone, and welcome to the latest installment of This Week in Crypto Philanthropy. We are super excited to have you back because we have a very special episode today. My name is Pietro Moran. I'm Director of Crypto at Shift4. Unfortunately, my illustrious co-host, Nick, is not on for this episode, but he assured me that you're going to be in good hands here today. We're very excited for a special guest that we'll actually be interviewing. But before we get off to that, really quick, just a reminder to check out thegivingblock.com for all your needs for crypto philanthropy. We're super excited to continue servicing all of our friends, partners, and the folks that are excited and eager to learn more about crypto philanthropy. And then I guess before we jump into it, want to give a really quick update on the market. Things are going pretty well, slow and steady. Bitcoin's right around 90,000. And for folks who are sticking to the news cycle, we have a pretty interesting White House Crypto Summit coming up Friday, March 7th. So keep your eyes and ears tuned to see if anything spicy happens there. We'll definitely be reporting about it next week, and look forward to seeing you in next week's episode. But for today, have a very, very exciting opportunity here to bring on Josh Herring, who is the CEO of Longevity Science Foundation. Josh, welcome to the show. Excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Pietro. It's an honor.
I think the honor's all ours. This is the beauty of hosting a show. We get to talk to people that are more interesting than we are, and I think we are sticking true to that mission. But Josh, just to kind of get everything kicked off, rolling, understand a bit about what you're up to in the space, want to start at the beginning, as we all tend to do with these interviews. But tell us a bit about yourself. What do you currently do, and maybe even what your first introduction to crypto was. Would love to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So starting at the beginning, I am, like you just mentioned, the CEO of the Longevity Science Foundation. We are a global nonprofit based in Miami, Florida, that funds high quality fundamental and translational research for longevity science. Longevity is the study of how to live healthier for longer. There's some debate right now within the industry of whether it's really just living longer or whether it's extending what we like to coin as the health span. But for us at the Longevity Science Foundation, what we really do is we fund research on chronic and age-related diseases, or oftentimes things that focus on underrepresented population groups, put money in the hands of researchers who need that information, and then democratize and decentralize it to the end user that traditionally doesn't have access to the great findings that the researchers produce. So that's what we do in a nutshell. I've been in crypto for quite some time, actually. I've always been fascinated by it. I think I'm going on, 10 years now. And I originally got interested in it. I've always been an investor. I've always been interested in the financial and capital markets, but I saw it as something that was so different, so novel and interesting. And it really put power in individual people's hands, which I'm always a huge fan of. So I have forever been an advocate. I likely forever will be. And it's a good thing that the organization that I'm running follows a similar sort of thought process and philosophy.
That's amazing. I mean, for one, just to backtrack, I know you said you're in Miami. Super excited to say I am as well. And the show is technically coming to you live from Miami. So for all the listeners, this is a first for us here on the podcast. But that's amazing. I mean, when you talk about being health conscious and wanting to extend the sort of spectrum of human health, wellness, and longevity, I think that's one, like, if you think about like the order of what are the most important things as a human being, it's like, well, how do I live as long as possible and as healthy as possible, right? So it's like directly to like some of our most core needs. I think that everyone can relate to that, but also pretty epic. I mean, you're a true OG when it comes to crypto. I mean, 10 years in the space is no joke. Can you maybe just elaborate a little bit more? I know you said that you're very keen on crypto capital markets, like, just for folks, because we have a lot of listeners that are maybe new or just exploring crypto for the first time. I think you were really there when it was on the frontier. Was there anything that really looped you in more, or was it just like being close to the investing landscape that got you involved?
Yeah, great question. It definitely was just being close to the investment landscape. I think, at a very young age, I've always been entrepreneurial. And I think I was looking for new ways to get involved with an industry that I didn't have access to. And when I thought about investing and I thought about like what crypto was really made for, I just loved the ability to really access something and feel like I was an owner in a much larger process that wasn't just a corporation or a smaller idea. It was really a movement. And I thought that the movement in itself was inspiring. It's got an awesome mission, and that's what really drew me in from day one.
Amazing. Yeah, I think a lot of the themes that we harp on at Shift4 and the Giving Block about inclusivity, accessibility, decentralization have so many tie-ins to crypto. So it makes it very simple to kind of connect the through line and apply it to philanthropy. But we tackle the crypto side here. Speaking more on the philanthropic side, I'm curious, like, where did the passion come from in your eyes to dive into this field about health, wellness, longevity? Was there something that motivated you? I mean, what's the story there? Because I imagine we're all curious about how to live longer, but like to turn that into your professional passion is a whole other thing, right?
Yeah, for sure. And my road here was actually pretty untraditional in and of itself. So, straight out of college, I got a job in finance, and I was really enjoying what I was doing. I was an investor. So what I would do is I would work with people and build custom investment solutions for them. And I was really good at that job, but I wasn't feeling like I had as much impact on the right communities that I wanted to serve. And I wanted to just feel a little bit closer to sort of like my intrinsic value set. And so I started thinking about, okay, like, well, what are the things that I really care about? And immediately, health and wellness jumped out at me. So, and I tell this story all the time. Both of my parents actually, at a young age, were diagnosed with cancer. My mom was diagnosed with sarcoma cancer when I was 6, and my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer when I was 17. And for me, like, it just, not really understanding what was going on with my mom, but knowing that things were different, but definitely having a front seat sort of place when my dad was going through his cancer battle. I saw the way that diseases, but cancer and a number of other things impact people in the way that it shapes and changes their life, the way that they interact with the world, the way that they interact with other people. We had this whole, talk about, your immune system and whether you're sort of susceptible to diseases. And, for me, I'm just grateful to the research community because I get to say that both of my parents are alive today. I know that a lot of people who come from similar circumstances just statistically don't get to say the same thing. And I think that that's horrible. I fully know and embrace how lucky I am. And so my path to this world is truly just to give back. And I love the fact that I'm doing it in a nonprofit format and really giving to a group of people, which are the researchers, that I think need a little bit more support. When I was looking at all of this, I took a look from a number of different angles. And it turns out that the vast majority of researchers around the world, and you can think of the best, most high quality, best name brand institutions that are out there, they're underfunded. And I thought, well, okay, if the folks who ultimately helped to save my parents' lives had been underfunded, then in all likelihood, they wouldn't be alive today. So
Mm-hmm.
if I can make sure that someone else who's going through a similar circumstance as me has a team built around them that's fully equipped with all the resources they need in order to produce successful outcomes for people around them, I'm going to do that. So that's how I wound up here. I joke with people all the time. I'm not a scientist. I don't pretend to be.
Yeah.
So I'm not too good with those sorts of technical questions. But what I am really good with is understanding how to bridge and connect the gap. And really figure out innovative ways to give people like my family or like countless other families out there across the globe access to real solutions that make a difference in their lives.
I mean, I really appreciate you sharing that personal anecdote. It's funny, or maybe not funny, but it's ironic in some way. Like I share a very similar story with one of my parents going through the same thing, and thank goodness, right, that they're all still around, and that's an incredible, outcome, like you said, statistically, right? So it doesn't underscore the need for assistance and help for all those that aren't funded well enough to create those similar outcomes. I mean, my goodness, I mean, you have probably the most impactful reason or storybook to say like, well, this is why I care because it's so close to home, right? And when you think about, let's say, crypto in the context of your work, or just how it can act as maybe an accelerant or multiply the effects of what you're doing, don't want to be flipping around obviously the very impactful work that's happening, but how does technology and sort of frontier of finance marry with that to maybe increase the scope of what you can do? Would love to understand how you're weaving what that very personal like situation is into also like all the tools around to maybe get to those outcomes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, look, to talk about crypto, I'm so grateful to the crypto community. First and foremost, the majority of our donations do come through crypto. I think I read on the Giving Block's 2024 annual report that over $1 billion in crypto was donated to nonprofits in 2024 alone. Like, that's a staggering figure, and that's incredible. I think that keeping up that work, boosting the support of all the nonprofits that are receiving that love from the crypto community, you know, as a traditional donor, I don't think a lot of people are exposed to crypto giving, but
Mm-hmm.
showing them that they can be, and conversely introducing the crypto community to philanthropy in really meaningful ways, I think that's always really helpful. And just making it more commonplace. It already is becoming more commonplace, but continuing along this same trend. I mean, for us, like we couldn't ask for anything more. I think, when we think about donations and nonprofits, we all the time talk about the need to get money. But what we're really talking about is the need to give more access to the right sorts of people who are our end users, and the need to reach more people at the end of the day to share our missions, to share our stories. And I think that really winds in with the second thing that I'm really sort of happy with and excited about right now, and that's avenues like the Giving Block.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've got a great relationship with the Giving Block, and I think it's good on both sides of the spectrum. It gives organizations a really neat opportunity to expose themselves to donor pools that they traditionally probably wouldn't have access to. And at the same time, it gives really great access to the donors to go online or go somewhere to some repository and see all of the great causes that need help and have the freedom to be able to do something about that. I mean, I think that that's incredible. For the Longevity Science Foundation specifically, I think, as an organization, our mission is very similarly aligned to the same core fundamentals of the crypto community, period. We focus heavily on democratization of information, accessibility, decentralizing. And so when we think about these things, like in crypto's case, it's more about financial freedoms. And in our world, it's more about health access. But what we're doing is the same. Like, we're focusing on something very similar to decentralized science, the sharing of information with all populations equally, and boosting health access in the world. And so whether that's working with the practitioners, the doctors, the clinicians, the end users, lay people just like myself who just want to make a difference in this space but are trying to figure out how to do so, crypto is an excellent way to be able to take a foot and take a step in that door. And that's really what it's allowed us to do so far.
That's incredible. It's actually, it reminds me of sort of a subset of the crypto community called DeSci, like decentralized science. I'm sure you're probably on top of this, but like one of the ones I remember a friend telling me about was this thing called HairDAO, which is, just for folks listening in, like it's folks who raised, a pool of money from, the broader investment community to help fund treatments and or potential cures for male pattern baldness, which, okay, maybe that's a little less important than cancer research. But at the same time, it's an interesting way of like creating community around shared issues and decentralizing information and, kind of multiplying effort through the power of community. I wanted to touch on that really quickly because you mentioned community and how you're thankful for the folks in crypto. But as far as LSC is concerned, how are you bridging the gap? Because you have a really great, I would say, fundamental understanding of crypto as a practitioner yourself for a decade now, which is a very long time. But for folks who are maybe just dipping their toes in the water, like how do you engage with the crypto community, and like are you doing anything in the form of events or things that we should keep on the roadmap or in our mind's eye?
Yeah, great question. Look, I think what we're trying to do is really pioneer an openly crypto friendly dialogue, which I think is definitely needed, particularly now because there's so much happening in crypto, more than I can keep up with, even though I am an active practitioner.
Yeah.
And I think from the philanthropy side of things, right? Like, a lot of organizations accept crypto, which is great. As a nonprofit, you traditionally need to take donations from wherever they're coming. And so I think it's smart, wise, and I'm very happy to see it. I think what we're trying to do is really walk the walk with this. We've got a great relationship with the Giving Block, like I've mentioned. if donating with crypto isn't the very first thing that you see on our website when you click to support us, it's like one of the first things that you see. We've done articles with Cointelegraph. Like, we are actively trying to be an organization that, by example, is really showing other nonprofits and crypto donors how to bridge their two worlds and interact with one another meaningfully. I attend crypto events all over, from DC to Miami to New York. I frequently interact with people in that community. Some of our original founders are crypto enthusiasts and practitioners themselves. And so I think for people that are just dipping their toes in, it's like, look, you've got an entire world that's opened up in front of you. And I think for a lot of the same reasons that you're likely in crypto, you're probably somewhere inside relatively philanthropic as well. And just having a look and seeing whether there are things that resonate with your cause, in sort of like your internal intrinsic values, I think that using crypto to bridge that gap is an awesome means to be able to do so. Now, speaking of events, we actually are, funnily enough, having one in Miami. So coming live at you again from Miami a week from tomorrow. So Thursday the 13th, we're hosting the first Longevity Science Summit. And we're really excited about this. I think particularly because it's so dissimilar to a lot of other events that have come to the area before. It's something where we are bridging the gap really between venture capital folks, private equity folks, crypto folks, angel investors, with the scientific community. So the researchers and the doctors and the longevity experts and the enthusiasts and the practitioners. We're doing so in a really targeted fashion to figure out how can we help one another achieve our shared goals and our shared missions, which at the end of the day are really built upon the same foundational principles. There are still some tickets left for this event, so I would, if anyone's interested, go grab one, reach out to us for a discount. We're happy to give you one. But I think, for us, it's like, how do we educate people well at this event too? So we don't just want to have a gala dinner and a fundraiser, which again, I think that's great. And that's definitely a part of it. But for the people that come, we want them to really understand what our mission is. And that's funding research and then decentralizing and democratizing it. And in order to do that, you really have to understand what it is that we are funding at the end of the day. The most exciting research call that we're working on right now is to support female fertility, ovarian health, hormonal health, and menopause. And I think that it's really important that we highlight things like that from parts of the community that don't traditionally get a lot of the spotlight when we talk about research generally. And then thinking about all the things that the crypto community can do to support those efforts. I mean, the trajectory is nothing but straight up. And I think that's why we're really excited to put it together, because who we're pooling is really just a really interesting, fascinating group of people that are focused on, giving each other the freedom and, again, the access to do the great things that we all want to do at the end of the day.
100%. I mean, first of all, really appreciate you coming to the show with not only the value of your story, but also, offering up to still have some folks attend. So just as a quick call out for anybody who is considering, being in the Miami area next week, we'll have a link in the show notes for you to be able to go and check out, potentially grabbing a ticket to the event. I mean, that sounds like a really exciting and interesting, but also thought-provoking opportunity for folks to get involved. I think it also speaks to like the value of thoughtful programming. I think a lot of folks are not necessarily stuck in their ways, but they have the tried and true kind of gala dinner, like you said. Sure. They're used to doing that, and it works, right? Because we've seen success with that. But it seems like you guys are really shaking it up in a meaningful way, which is exciting. Kind of leads to my next question. As we think about longevity, right? Living a long time, healthily, with a fruitful kind of experience as you go through all phases of life. Is there anything, it doesn't have to be crypto, it could be anything, but is there anything as you look towards that like bright, long lasting future ahead that really gets you excited that, is worth sharing? Because I'm really curious, you have a very distinct perspective on all this versus maybe some of us who don't think about health, wellness, the rest of it until, we have to, right?
Right. No, definitely. I think, for me, what's really interesting is that we're having these conversations much sooner now. And I think that we're talking about things like preventative medicine and predictive diagnostics, as opposed to symptom suppression and dealing with things once they already happen. Mm-hmm. I think for us, right, this is a really bold claim. And we may not get here in my lifetime, but we're certainly going to make some strides to get there eventually. What we want to do is live in a world where chronic and age-related diseases don't plague us as a human population anymore. And I think in order to do that, it requires obviously a significant level of investment. It requires a significant level of knowledge, but it's really commitment to figuring out how to stop things before they happen, before it's too late. Again, like just going back to my personal story, my parents were lucky enough to have the facilities and resources to deal with things before it was too late. But still, they were late enough that they weren't able to identify them so early that it would be a completely, or not completely, but relatively painless process, especially relative to what they had to go through. And I think that as we talk about longevity, it's really evolving from this conversation of how do I just live as long as possible to what are the things that really impact us? So, heart disease, brain health, brain aging, things like Alzheimer's and dementia, severely underrepresented population groups, like with women, like these are all things that we very intentionally have research calls for. And I think that the more that we can illuminate these things and draw people to this message, because everyone comes from a different perspective. Like I'm coming at it again because my parents had cancer. Someone may be coming at it because their sibling has Alzheimer's or dementia. Someone else may be coming at it because their child unfortunately had a stroke. Like I don't want us to live in a world where we have to even think about those things. And I think other people feel the exact same way too. Like this is something that unites us all. It's, one of the few things I think that are left in this world that's not divisive is just pushing us
Right.
towards a place that's healthy, better, productive for all people. And the data shows that when all people are doing better, it's a sort of vicious cycle, but in a really good way, right? Like we all prosper together. And I think that that level of togetherness and community is something that, we in the longevity community and the health industry, generally speaking, I think are trying to adopt more. And I think it's a direction that we're really moving.
That's amazing. I completely agree, right? Health is the great unifier. It's common across, and it's common to all of us, right? I mean, everybody wants to see themselves, their family members, loved ones, et cetera, have the most, prosperous and fruitful life. So that makes so much sense. But I agree. Like, it's really exciting to see all the developments that are, it feels like we're like right on the cusp of, or just like you can kind of see the light towards some of those breakthroughs, and it's super exciting. I think whether it happens in our lifetime or in the future, it feels like we're marching down a path towards everyone having just an improved quality of life across a lot of facets, which is really great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think about all the different things that are available today that we talk about more frequently, like, even if it's something like cryotherapy, or this relatively new thing that people are doing called red light therapy, or the taking of various supplements, or thinking about things like NAD and oxygen treatment. And it's like there are so many new things coming out consistently, and I think that that's beautiful. Um, Part of the work that we're doing as an organization is to credential, verify, and research like how effective some of these things are. Because again, for us, it's like we're not in this to make any money. If we were, we'd be doing something completely different. Like we just want to give people the information they need to take care of themselves as best as possible. And as new things come out, there needs to be more research that's done in order to verify whether they work, period, and whether they work for you. Like a lot of these methodologies are individual specific. And so the more that we can promote that sort of like personalized medicine approach, and I definitely think it's something that we're doing, I think we'll find ourselves in a really good place really soon.
Amazing. I want to leave you with the last word, and I want to say thank you in advance for sharing this story with us. I think it's both informative for our listeners to understand both what you do, but also how you're embracing, again, technology, innovative ways to fundraise, and community as sort of those pillars towards success. But for folks who want to learn more, even selfishly for me, what's a great place to or resource that you would suggest for us to go and find more about you? And also, if there's any parting words or things you want to leave with us, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. I would say, look, we've got a very simple mission. So the content that we put out is meant to be digestible for nearly everybody. And if it's not, reach out to us. Like we will break it down for you in a way that we guarantee makes sense and helps you out. I would say our LinkedIn is a great place. Like we post all the time. Sometimes we post too much. But what we really do is we try to break it down between things that are going on with the foundation, with the industry, and breaking down some of the things that you can do to just generally take care of yourself. So explanations for different therapies and tactics and kind of what's happening, generally speaking. All that information is on our LinkedIn. I would say taking a look at the website as well. You can sign up for the newsletter. It's a monthly thing. But if you don't want to get emails from us on a monthly basis, which is perfectly fair, just having a look at the news and features section, I think that that's also another great place to go. Looking at the past grants as well, staying up to date with what the results from those things are and the things that we're looking to fund in the future. I think that's awesome. I think the only place to see this is on the donate page, but if you go to it and you hit the drop down button, you can see the things that are on our mind that we're trying to fund. So right now, I think it's Alzheimer's, healthy brain aging, cardiovascular health, women's health and female fertility, and a couple of others. That's what's on our mind, and that's what our portfolio is constructed of right now. But that's going to change consistently. And I think the way that it changes will be really representative of what needs to change in the world and what deserves more attention. And so if you just want to stay abreast of what's happening and maybe what isn't happening, but what should be happening, just stay in touch with us. Like reach out always. We are a small organization of a group of people who really care about this. Every single one that works for the LSF has a personal story that connects us to this cause. And there's no one that we're not willing to speak with. Like I would love to talk about this for hours. I don't want to take up your afternoon, but I think it's awesome stuff. And to the extent that we can be helpful to people as well, we're going to be putting out shortly, can't say when exactly, but a repository of clinics, doctors, and practitioners in Miami that focus on these sorts of things, and a list of tests and different methodologies that you can do in order to start to take care of yourself in a way that maybe you haven't thought of yet. So I would definitely say that, but just get involved, stay involved. I think if you resonate with this message, you will naturally. And I think that's the really great thing about it as well.
Spoken like a true pro. Josh, thanks so much for joining us. For everybody tuning in, please go check out Longevity Science Foundation. We'll have links in the show notes for both their website, their socials, as well as potentially grabbing those tickets that Josh referred to. Super excited to get this out to you guys. Thank you for tuning in. And for both Nick and myself, this has been another episode of This Week in Crypto Philanthropy, and we'll see you next week.